wish that had some energy to it, that video. Good night. That was like a Christmas anthem behind it. The ringing bells, all of it, the sirens really setting off your morning well. I'll start with this. Just whoever in the room has been praying for an island vacation in the month of December, you need to be more specific with your prayers next year. What a crazy week it has been. It's easy to make jokes of because it was minimally impactful for my family, and if it was impactful for yours, I'm so sorry. It was a wild week, definitely one that'll be memorable, displaced a few people. I've heard a few stories along the way of what this week looked like in a run on Safeway and all the craziness this week, but I'm really glad that you're here. I want to start with today a question, something that I've came across. Actually, it's not even really a question, it's a statement that I've found to be way more inflammatory than I think people realize. This is a statement that has an opportunity to be more offensive than you think it is. It's a statement that you make with an innocent heart, but can be really divisive. Here's the statement, and maybe you've felt this before too. Have you ever had someone say, you look just like? You look just like you look just like, you know who you look just like? And they name a celebrity, or they name a cousin, or they go, oh, I got to pull somebody up. Hold on, they're friends of mine from high school, and they pull them up, and they show you the picture. And this can go one of two ways. This could go, wow, that's so flattering. I'm so grateful. Or that's really what you think of me? Like, that's what you think? Just know for me, unless you bring up a picture of like Brad Pitt from the movie Troy, I don't want to see it. Like, I don't want to see it, because there's a view of myself and the way that I see the world that may not always be realistic, but you don't need to shatter that for me. My wife a few weeks ago, it was like a close family friend of ours, says, man, we're watching this TV show. You look just like this gal on a TV show. And we look it up, and she's like, oh, that's nice. And she look up the picture and shows it, and my wife in the moment goes, oh, thank you. But we get in the car, she goes, is that what I look like? Like, are those what my eyebrows look like? Is that what my face looks like? Is that whatever? It's like, no, you're spiraling. It's okay. The idea of that's what you look like can be so disruptive to people, because we have an idea of how our reality looks, and you have an idea of how your reality looks. And when those things hold in tension, when those things don't line up with each other, man, we can get into trouble. And this is one of the real core issues that I see in the Christmas story. Is there's a way that we see God operate throughout the story of the nativity and how Jesus shows up into the world. And then there's the way that I would have done it. I mean, if you look at a broad level at the Bible, this is going to be your quick recap of the Bible. From the very beginning, we see Adam and Eve in this Garden of Eden, and then sin enters the world, right? And everything kind of falls apart from there. We get this distance or separation between God and humanity, his creation. It wasn't the way it was intended to be. God wanted to be in relationship with humanity, but once sin happens, there's this separation. And throughout the Old Testament, we see God just trying to work all these different schemes and patterns to get people back into relationship. It's through different sacrifices or high places or monuments and moments that God tries to bring back this relationship. And then God tells us about this new way, this new plan that could come into place of how he's going to bring people and humanity back together. He calls it this coming king. He alludes to this as this Messiah. This new form of relationship was going to come onto the scene. We see this in the book of Isaiah. This is the Old Testament. This is like 700 years before Jesus comes onto the scene. Here's what we see. For I am about to do something new. Say new for me. New, there it is, new. See, I've already begun. Do you not see it? I will make a pathway through the wilderness, somewhere where there's no pathway. I'll do something new. I'll create rivers and dry wasteland. I am going to do something brand new. And new for you and for me is exciting. Anytime I hear something new, a new product, a new development, it carries with it a sense of hope, doesn't it? I never upgrade something in my life to make it worse. Do you? I only upgrade to something new if it's going to make it better. That's why you get frustrated when your technology, let's say your phone gets pushed a new update, and you get on it, you go, where is everything? Like, I had it all laid out. I had it perfect. I had my systems. I had my stuff. What is this new? New made it worse. That's not the way new is supposed to work. New is exciting. Because if life is going terrible, if I said something new was coming, you go, great. Let's do new. Life isn't going well. If life is going well and I said new is coming, great, let's get better. This is going to be even better. If I could take good to great, I will take that. But When God says something new is coming, he foreshadows about this Messiah. And we see all these things called, the Bible refers to them as prophecy. These prophecies are foretellings of what this king figure would be like, how he would operate and how he would rule. And if you've seen the Charlie Brown Christmas special, you may have seen this verse before, but this is just one example of this foreshadowing. There's over 300 prophecies in the Old Testament, conservatively talking about Jesus. And here's one of them. The government will rest on his shoulders, and he will be called, of all the ways you could describe him, a wonderful counselor, unbelievably wise. He's a mighty God, so he has all this power. Everlasting Father. There's this consistency to him and this closeness of a father. And a Prince of Peace, that under his rule, reign, that he will usher in a sense of peace. His government and his peace, well, they'll never end. They will just keep going forever. So people are hearing this and they get excited. They start to paint these pictures. It continues. And he says, he will rule with fairness and justice, things that I love as long as they benefit me, from the throne of his ancestor David for all eternity. The passionate commitment of the Lord of heaven's armies. I mean, now we're talking about God's armies. Will make this happen. So God, I mean, he sends a pretty clear signal. This is going to change things, and it's going to be new for the better. And when you start thinking of how to scheme and strategize into a broken world, a sense of hope, I mean, forget a broken world. Let's personalize it for a minute. Into your life, a sense of hope, a sense of good news, that things could change and things could get better. If you start to scheme and strategize, which you do anyway, it's the thing that keeps you up at night. It's the thing that keeps you up. How do I make my life better? How do I make things easier? How do I make the difficult and challenging things subside? You start to scheme, and you have some pretty good ideas. Never mind with unlimited resources and unlimited power. So this is God getting involved in all of humanity. I mean, I get some pretty good ideas of how this is going to go. And history waits patiently. Humanity anxiously waits for God to get involved. And then a baby's born. Not a king, no big flashy moments, no ascension from the clouds, no thunderbolts and lightning, no smiting my enemies, no big powerful things. A baby is born. And I don't mean to be rude or crass. I don't want to rain on the Christmas story, but God, I could come up with a better plan than that, don't you think? Like, you never get to the most stressful moments of your life when things are the hardest and think, I wish I had another baby. Like, that's not what any of us think. You know what would complicate this less? An infant. Like, that's the kind of thing that I need in my life. And I don't want to undermine it, but here, God's ways can look underwhelming at first. God's plan of your life can look pretty underwhelming sometimes. You'd be like, this is where we've landed. This is the idea. This is the strategy that we've come up with, is a baby born to unwed teenager parents in a time in history when nothing can spread, when there's no video cameras to record it, there's no even audio recordings that you could have. You're just telling stories in a city that nobody knew about. It's not even a city, a small little outskirt town nobody knew about, with no power, no prestige, no title. I mean, come on. God, give me the pen and paper. Let me write this story. Let's at least make him born in Jerusalem, right? Like a central hub where his message can spread a little bit easier. Let's rewrite the story. Let's recast his parents maybe a little bit. I mean, that's a bit provocative. It's a lot of questions that come up around Mary and Joseph. So let's just give him great, noble parents who are already kings, who have some. We forget Jesus didn't have a trust fund, right? Like, Jesus came with so little. And I always wonder to myself, why? Why did God choose the solution none of us would have chosen? Why did God choose this solution of all solutions that he could have chosen? Why? And I know this isn't maybe a very validating answer, or maybe not a soothing answer that we want, but it's a question I want to go into today is, why did Jesus have to come as a baby? Why did God choose this answer? And what I'm going to get to, I'm going to spoil the ending right now, is because he can. Because he could. Because you know this to be true. If Jesus was born in Jerusalem and he had this opportunity, we said right place, right time, fate worked it out. If he was born to a family with wealth and prestige, be like, isn't it amazing what power, influence, and money could do? But being born in the time, place, and location of the parents that he was, we step back and we say, isn't it amazing what God can do? Isn't it amazing what God can do in the midst of this, in a story that I would have never written, in a way that I would have never done it? Because my goal, if I'm coming as God into humanity, would be to let people know as quickly as possible. This is where God and I are different. There's a lot of good reason. You should be thankful. My wife is thankful. Everyone should be thankful that God and I are different, that God has better plans than I do. But here's one of the things that we see is God's different. God's not trying to impress us. He's trying to reach us. God's goal from the very beginning was not to impress us. He could have done that really quickly. His goal from the very beginning was not to impress you and me, but to simply reach us in our humanity, to help us understand that he's not as far and distant as we might think, to do something new that maybe we wouldn't have chosen to do, but he could do it anyway. And as we step back and we start to realize, look at what God can do, it's where we can start to find hope in this story. But one of the things that this requires, the Christmas story, for us to really understand it and grapple with it and wrestle with it, is it requires a sense of humility. It requires a humility to say that my plans aren't the best plans, that my understanding of power and prestige and respect and authority may be misconstrued. That God might have a I think I'd say he does, have a different definition of what it looks like to carry yourself with authority and power. Because God chose not to come with power, but vulnerability, to start somewhere different than you and I would have started. In Isaiah chapter 55, I see a verse that I fall back on all the time that helps me wrestle with my faith a bit more, and maybe it'll help you too. It says, "For my thoughts," this is God speaking, "for my thoughts are not your thoughts, and neither are my ways your ways, declares the Lord. As the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts are higher than your thoughts." Like, that's just how it works, that God operates on a different level. And instead of inviting God down to my understanding and say, "God, let me tell you how things could go," what if we take the chance with humility to lay down our plans and say, "God, I wonder what you're up to. I wonder what you're doing in this." Because you chose to take a different path than I would have. You chose to start with a baby, to not start with power, but to start in the moment of dependence, a moment that none of us could have controlled, a season of our life that none of us had any power, influence, or authority. We were purely dependent. Why? I think it's because God chose to resonate with his people. He started at a place that would be universal, not at a place that would be set apart to say God is different than us, not so that any one of us could look and say he doesn't understand or he didn't come for me. He came at the lowest of lows, the most humble position, setting aside all authority as God, but coming as a child. And here's why. The book of Hebrews, after Jesus' death and resurrection, tries to explain this a little bit. Here's what we see. Hebrews 4:15, "For we do not have a high priest who is unable to sympathize with our weakness, but one who in every respect has been tempted as we are, and yet without sin." My sophomore in high school English teacher told me to never use a double negative in a sentence. Did you ever get that too? The Bible didn't get that at first because it's a strong double negative. You do not have a high priest who is unable. This is a double negative. What it means is we do have a high priest who is able to empathize with everything that we've experienced. We have a God, an intercessor, a connector. Because remember, this is the goal all along, is to get humanity and God back in right relationship. And God was going to do a new thing, something better, and he sent this baby, but with the ultimate goal to reconnect humanity so that we, you and I, might have a God who understands what we're going through. That in no moment of our life can we say, "God, you just don't understand." You could look around your family, you could look around your school, you could look around your work, you could look around wherever you wanted to and say, "These people don't understand what I'm going through." And they may not, but God does. God has humbled himself in every way to understand what you and I are going through. And I think it's this great equalizer, because when Jesus was announced, this angel comes to these shepherds right next to the manger where Jesus is at in Bethlehem. And this is what he says to these shepherds about Jesus coming onto the scene. Same thing he would say to you and I. But the angel reassured them, "Don't be afraid. I bring you good news that will bring great joy to all people." Remember, Jesus' birth, the goal was to bring good news of great joy to all people. Good news, great joy to all people. Where in the Christmas story have you lost the script that Jesus did anything else? If Jesus' announcement and his birth is anything but good news of great joy to you, then we've probably miscommunicated it. It is good news of great joy for all people. that we might have the opportunity to come humbly to Jesus and realize that he's up to something bigger than we expected. Another thing that we learn in this story of Jesus' birth is that God plays the long game. That God plays the long game. There's no viral moment or mass platform, which would have been the most creative, insightful, and probably the quickest way to get to the point, right? If Jesus was here today, could you imagine the Netflix specials? Could you imagine? I mean, step aside Mr. Beast. He has a following that way surpasses you. He's multiplying food live on air. I mean, he's doing some really incredible stuff, but he didn't choose viral moments. He didn't choose big, flashy things. Think about it this way. Jesus, born as a baby, waited 30 years to show himself as miraculous and start his ministry. I mean, God plays this long game. He even look at how Jesus interacts with people. He goes one by one, having conversations. He sits with people one by one who need to be healing, and he sits with them and he asks about what's going on. He takes the slower route. He just doesn't get in front of a bunch of people and say, "Oh, you guys are healed. All right, let's move on to the next crowd." He doesn't do that. He sits with people. He takes the slow game. In fact, he tells this parable that has many applications that I've preached in a number of different ways, but I've actually never taken it as an autobiography. I've never taken this parable that Jesus taught through the lens that we're talking about today of talking about himself. But read this with Jesus' birth in mind. In Mark 4, Jesus said, "How can I describe the kingdom of God? What story should I use to illustrate it?" Well, think about it this way. It's like a mustard seed planted in the ground. And the mustard seed, it is the smallest of all seeds. I mean, this thing is itty bitty, tiny, and ridiculous, but it becomes the largest of all garden plants. It grows long branches, and birds can make nests in its shade, but it doesn't happen in a moment. It happens over time. And isn't it interesting? That's the same strategy God chose to employ in himself. It took time. Didn't happen in a moment. Which invites us to the question, what if this? What if the thing I've been waiting for God to do has already begun, just smaller than I expected? What if the thing you've been waiting for God to do has already started? It started smaller than you expected. So it's easy to miss. It didn't happen in the way you wanted, but remember, God's plans are higher than my plans. My script isn't always God's script. I want God to do flashy, impressive things in my life. I want the big, flashy miracles. And I'm not saying he's above it, but I'm saying a lot of times God chooses to start with the small things and take the long road, to do things that are a bit more cumbersome than we ever expected. I mentioned before there were a number of different prophecies, these foretellings of what God would show up and look like. And as people heard these, they started to attach themselves to certain words. They heard mighty king, wise counselor, they heard warrior, they heard armies, and they thought, okay, God's taken over everything. But they missed so many. Theologians say that God, at the minimum, fulfilled at least, in a conservative estimate, about 300 prophecies from the Old Testament. Here's one of them that people read over that we understand on the other side of Jesus' birth. It happened in Isaiah. We read this always around Christmas. All right, then. The Lord himself will give to you a sign. Look, the virgin will conceive a child. She will give birth to a son and will call him Emmanuel, which means God with us. Like, this is the things that God foreshadowed and spoke to. And as I looked at some of these, they're just downright inconvenient. They don't even make a lot of sense. Like God, he could have called any shot that he wanted to, right? I mean, he could have set the parameters. He makes the rules, so he could have made the rules to be anything. He didn't have to do the virgin birth. He didn't have to do these complicated things, but he chose to. He chose to. Which is something that I don't do. And I think one of the reasons why is because God wanted to prove that he's consistent in a world that's inconsistent. That he will follow through in ways that you and I don't usually follow through. I like to make big promises, but at the end of the day, if it gets too inconvenient, it's not going to happen. I tell people this all the time. This is how I operate. I'm just full transparency. My wife and I will meet a couple, and I'm just like, you guys are awesome. And right there on the spot, I'll be like, we need to hang out. Have you ever had this happen before? A couple tell you this? We need to get together. Let's get the families together. This is going to be absolutely amazing. This is going to be absolutely amazing. And I just self-aware enough at this point where I tell them, I am all enthusiasm and no follow-through. My wife is all follow-through and small. She's more realistic with the enthusiasm. So we need to couple this together because at some moment, if the kids are sick, if something's coming up, if I forgot this, I'm sorry, it's not going to happen. But God has a level of consistency that I don't have in my life. Jesus' birth proves that God follows through on his promises no matter how inconvenient. That God just follows through on his promises. Another one, this is crazy to think about. God foretold in the book of Micah, I believe it's chapter 5, that Jesus would be born in Bethlehem. Here's the verse. But you, O Bethlehem, you are only a small village among the people of Judah, a small village in a small gathering of people. Yet a ruler of Israel, whose origins in the distant past will come from you on my behalf. No one in the Old Testament hung on this verse. No one believed in this. They wanted more armies, more flash. But Bethlehem, this small place, if you don't remember, if you're not familiar with the Jesus story, that's okay. Mary and Joseph were not from Bethlehem. They didn't live there, lived in Nazareth. And if you look at the map, which is inconveniently small, I'm so sorry. This is just what it's going to be, okay? Next year, we'll get a really big TV, and it'll be perfect. But we're all the way up here, and we have this 90-mile trek. It doesn't even, as the crow flies, I would draw a straight line, but it's not even that. The route that they had to take was across the Jordan River twice in the third trimester. How good does that sound, gals? I mean, that sounds horrible. How would you feel about taking a donkey to Tacoma right now? Doesn't sound very good, does it? But all of a sudden, this is the story that we have. And how, why would you choose to do this? Why would you choose to do this? Why would you choose to get, and when your immaculately conceived, soon-to-be wife is about to give birth, why would you say, hey, let's head down to Bethlehem? Is because the rulers and authorities of the time said a census had to be taken so we could increase the taxes. Everyone's favorite news. Oh, good, so we get to travel so we can increase our taxes. This is really, really exciting. But they didn't have an option. They didn't have a choice. They had to travel the 90 miles all the way down to Bethlehem. Think about it this way. God used a ruling authority that didn't even believe in him or worship him. In fact, worshiped other gods to accomplish his purposes. Isn't it amazing what God will do to fulfill his own promises? Isn't it amazing and astounding to see what God will do to author his story? To make sure that we get the point that he is consistent in a world full of inconsistency. And even in the smallest moments when we often don't perceive them, that God is still working. That Jesus' birth, not the way that I would have written the story, actually is better than I could have ever expected. That Jesus, being born the way he does, demonstrates what can be done in God's strength, but not in ours. It reminds us, I think this whole story does, to approach life with a sense of humility. That even though you are smart, strategic people, I mean, look at you. You are smart people. You look good. You look savvy. You decided to come to a great church, so that makes you smart. Like, even though you have so much going for you, you're so smart, you have so many schemes and plans for your life, which are great. You should probably keep doing those. Keep investing in retirement. Keep doing all those things. Like, I'm telling you, keep doing it. But in what areas of your life are you honest enough to open-handedly look at God and say, your will be done, not mine? God, where are you showing up? Because I haven't seen it. I've been too busy with my head down trying to get my own power, my own prestige, but you led with vulnerability, none of that stuff. So maybe you could reorient the way that I see the world because I want to see it your way. Because oftentimes I don't always get it right. This week, I had a really fun night planned. I was really excited about it, actually. I was going to take my two daughters to Red Robin. We were going to go to dinner together with a little daddy-daughter date, and then afterwards, we were going to go shopping for mom and get her Christmas presents. It was going to be pretty fun. What made this night even more fun is that I had a Red Robin gift card. And isn't it great to go to a restaurant when you have a gift card? I'm like, girls, get the Shirley Temples, get the Red Dye 40. I don't even care. Load it up. Let's just do it. So I get ready, and I'm fun, Dad. We get in the car. We're driving out to Red Robin. I'm thinking, girls, this is going to be the best night ever. I'm hyping them up on it. And they start bickering. They do the things that kids do. They're like touching each other. And I'm like, stop touching each other. Just stop. It's, fussy. They're being annoying. And I'm like, all right, they can't ruin my night. It's going to be awesome. I've decided it. This is the plan. And some of you laugh. You already know. We get to Red Robin. It was fun. I mean, they actually sat us pretty quick. It was pretty good. We had a good time. We sat down. We got a little meal. And then we hit a few roadblocks. I mean, they had their little drawing things, and the crayons just broke right away, and that caused some feelings to get hurt. And then we tried to steal crayons, and that got some more feelings to get hurt, right? But our food shows up. And once our food shows up, we take like 2 bites, and my youngest says, hey, I have to go to the bathroom. And I'm like, oh, that's disappointing. And so we get the whole crew of us. We go to the bathroom, and I see my server on the way by. And I said, hey, I'm not leaving without paying you, okay? Like, we're still here. You don't got to do anything. And she laughed. She said, okay. We come back and they don't bust our food. It was all gone. Yeah. Oh, you guys really feel for my story. Thank you. I love it. That's the most dramatic part. Jesus, born. Like, who cares? They bust the food? What are they thinking? They bust the food, they take it away. My girl's like, no. And the server comes by, I'm so sorry. They were so on it. They got rid of that food. But we already put an order in. You're going to have, that's fine. Don't worry about it. We're going to be fine. Keep trying with our broken crayons. I'm like, nothing's going to ruin my night. Nothing's going to ruin my night. We're having so much fun. Christmas joy is in the air. It's awesome. Bring us our food back. It's not really the same order, but I'm just like, let's just run with it. I don't even care. Let's just keep going. Somehow my daughter takes a little thing of barbecue sauce and just takes a shower with it all of a sudden. It just takes it and is trying to explain something, and it's all over. And I don't even know how much barbecue, I don't know how that much barbecue sauce came out of that little container. I don't even know. Somehow it just spread all over her body. She's so sad. She has barbecue sauce all over. We're trying to clean her up. She can't really focus on eating food. So we're like, hey, we got to go. We got to pack this thing up. We go and try and pay. The gift card takes forever. It's all this big old mess. We finally get him to the car. I look to my oldest, who's so excited. She goes, all right, we're going shopping for Mom. And I said, no, we're not going shopping for Mom. Your sister has just barbecue sauce all over head to toe. You know what I mean? Like, I'm going to look like the worst parent on the planet. No, she's freaking out. We can't do it. So she starts freaking out. Her sister for freaking out, pouring barbecue sauce all over her place. And I stop and I look at my kids, and I wish I could say I whispered it, but I didn't. I said, girls, you got to learn in life. You don't always get what you want. You don't always get what you want. And I feel like the Holy Spirit whispered to me in that moment, neither do you. That you had a plan, you had an idea, you knew how this was going to go. It was going to be Christmas magic. It was going to be awesome. And it didn't go to plan. It didn't go the way that you want. Are you okay with that? And listen, I'm not up here trying to be naive and paint this deep picture that was God's plan all along, is that we'd cover ourselves in barbecue sauce. That wasn't the goal. I don't think that's a win. But do you have the humility to say that, hey, sometimes don't go to plan? Some things. I mean, listen, my kids got to learn it, and they're 5 and 7. But I wonder as an adult sometimes I haven't learned it either. That I have plans, I have goals, I have agendas, I have big dreams, I have ways that I want God to show up in big, impressive ways, but God is less interested in impressing me. He's like, I created the world. You don't think that's impressive enough? I created you. I knit you together in your mother's room. You're not impressed yet? But maybe he wants to reach me instead of impressing me. Maybe today God just wants to show up in a way to reach you instead of impressing you. Maybe today you're humble enough to acknowledge, I don't always get what I want. And that's okay, because maybe God's plans are better than I could have ever asked or imagined. In fact, after Jesus' death and resurrection, the Apostle Paul, this author and leader of the New Testament church, of this beginning early church, it's like 15 years after Jesus' death and resurrection, very early in the game. He writes to these people trying to help them understand why Jesus came the way that he did. And in this short snippet, he said this, but when the right time came, because it was the right time. God didn't do it on accident. It wasn't a mistake. When the right time came, God sent his son, born of a woman, subject to the law, subject to every hurt and heartache, every frustration, disappointment, subject to every rule, everything, the ruling authority of God, humbling himself, setting aside godhood, becoming a man. It's incredible. God sent him to do what? To condemn the world? No. To make us feel bad? To show us a standard that we can never live up to? That's not the goal. But to buy freedom for us who were slaves to the law so that he could adopt us as his very own children. Because that's the goal. That's the end game. And it happened slowly. He played the long game. It wasn't flashy like we'd all expect. It wouldn't have been the way that I wrote the story. But he did accomplish the goal. To make us all his very own children. And that is why we have hope in what God's doing that's new. That's why we have hope. That's why we have the humility to say, God, not my way, but your way. Your will be done. On earth, exactly like it's being done in heaven. And if we can figure that out, well, we might discover a version of our faith we didn't know was possible, and we might see the Christmas story in a brand new way. Version with hope and peace and joy. Maybe exactly like the angel said to the shepherds, is good news of great joy for all people. And that includes you. So as we close today, can I pray for you?